is Marcelo Bucater, drum department chair here at LACM. There we go. My pleasure to have a good friend in the house today. We met at Basic not too long ago, and I was hearing the sound check, and it's awesome. The songs, I'm sure you're gonna love it. So I'm gonna read his bio here really quick. So featured on the cover of February 2023 issue of Modern Drummer magazine, Pat Petrillo is world-renowned in the drum industry. He has backed and worked with a wide array of artists from many genres, including Patti LaBelle, Glenn Raynor, Osnoy, Chieli Minucci, and numerous Broadway shows, including A Chorus Line, Grease, Footloose, Dreamgirls, and other ones. He endorses Ludwig Drums, Zildjian Cymbals, Vic Firth Sticks, Evans Drumheads, and Earthworks microphones. He now leads his killer group, the Big Rhythm Band, performing in New York City and throughout the East Coast. On their new record, the Power Station Sessions, the band produces 9 groove backtracks in the contemporary instrumental category, featuring guest artists like Osnoy, Lenny Pickett, and Felicia Collins. Pat will be playing at NAMM Show this Friday with his band at the main stage, 11 a.m. And it's my pleasure to announce Mr. Pat Petrillo. Thank you.
Now, I never get a chance to do that, ever. Ever. So, the only time you get to do a drum solo is in a clinic. So thank you all for coming out, and I hope you dug it. Hey, everybody online, how you doing? I want to thank Marcelo for having me here, and it's a beautiful place, LACM, here in beautiful Pasadena. And so I'm going to talk about a lot of different things today, and I'm going to open up to questions as well, but I'm very serious when I say I never get a chance to play a solo, necessarily, in a gig, unless it's my group. And that happens only once in one song. Most of what I do is groove, stylistic groove, and give people what they want if they're hiring me to play with them. Whether it be a session that I don't necessarily know when I walk in what the music's going to be, or if I do know and coming with them with the right genre in my head that I know because I've grown up with the music and I've played the music and I've studied the music. So I think we're all vessels. You understand? We're all conduits of feel as drummers, right? It's what we do. We produce feel. We don't necessarily produce licks and chops. We can play licks and chops. But what we are the vessel for is the groove of the music. All music has a groove. Whether it's R&B, funk, soul, rock, Afro-Cuban, Brazilian, jazz, New Orleans, everything comes from a feel standpoint. Not necessarily metronomic time. You can have great metronomic time and not great feel. My growing up was about playing along to records, and played along to my brother's Beatles records. I didn't even really have a kit. I just kind of played on what I could play on, whether it's a couch, just sat there and listened to the lyrics, actually learned the lyrics first, probably before I could play the beats, listen to songs, listen to song form. So I knew what AABA form was when I was a kid, but didn't really know what it was, if you know what I'm saying. Didn't know what that term was. But you listen to music. The more you listen and absorb, the better vessel and conduit you're going to be. If you don't go back and listen to things from, the great eras of American music, whether it's soul, R&B, classic music like that, and those great drummers, you won't really be able to come from that place on this instrument. And it's more than just learning a technical beat, right? So I think Ringo was like my first influence, because that's what I grew up listening to. And I didn't realize that he listened to Earl Palmer and all those great drummers from the 50s, because those were the records that he got, in Liverpool. And so by default, Ringo also taught me about Earl Palmer, okay? And so my music history is all about, going back to the roots and learning those feels and playing straight eighth note in the gaps eighth note and swung eighth note. And I'm going to demonstrate some of those feels for you today, as well as play on some tracks from my record, which is on iTunes. You can check it out, The Big Rhythm Band. So I also have a rudimental background, and so I can talk a little bit about hand technique as well. Anybody here have any drum corps background at all? No? A little bit? Okay. Did you march in DCI at all?
No, I was in front ensemble.
There you go. Wonderful. Great. A real musician. Plays mallet instruments. Okay. So I did grow up in a drum corps, but I learned rudiments in school band. And I want to talk a little bit about technique. There's such a thing about, there's no right or wrong, there's different approaches. My approach came from a very a relaxed style and using a lot of rebound. So if you've seen my video, Hands, Grooves, and Fills, I kind of talk about this a lot. Speaking about being a conduit of groove, I'm also a conduit, I let the sticks come through me. So I don't stop the stick, and I kind of don't do this kind of thing. I know a lot of people do this and whip and that and all of that. I don't really do that. I just kind of do it naturally. Just let this thing kind of happen. So I never really had a teacher to teach me this. This is just the way in drum corps that it was done. It's like the whip motion to get my accent. So I start from here, and all in one motion, I'm just like pulling from here. You see, it's really a really straight line thing. When I'm just playing regular bouncy eighth notes, it's like I'm dribbling a basketball, basically. So I'm kind of pushing the stick down. If I want to move slower, I just let it rebound slower. Push it down with my forearm a little bit more. I'm always engaging the fingers a little bit, so I'm kind of pushing, letting it rebound. So you can see this is all working together. It's not just one element. So I like to do this exercise of eights and then switch hands, 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, and both. And so you can see that I'm just kind of perpetuating the rebound. If I want to go slower, my sticks are moving slower. So I'm always trying to move in time. Move in time, feel that rebound. Okay? And then when I'm doing downstrokes, I just stop the stick here. And what I call the whip drop. Soft taps down here. I'm just like I'm underwater. You know what I'm saying? Like my arm is just doing this. Right? So let's apply that. So if I'm on the kit and I'm doing this kind of thing, there's my backbeat and ghost notes, right? Accents and on the snare drum as I do on the practice pad. I don't really do anything different. So there's many different people call that a molar or call it, the name doesn't matter. I mean, I just kind of do a whip motion. So I do a series of accents, eighth notes just to warm up, shifting that around. You can see after I whip, I just hold the stick down when I want an accent. But I want it to come up, I let it come up. So accents, ghost notes, taps, accent, tap stuff. Then another exercise I use is what I call 5-5-3. Okay, so really it'll help your singles tremendously. So 5-note groupings of 16th notes that alternate. It's the alternation that'll do it for you. That'll really help. Some people like say, I want to get my singles like really good. So we'll sit there on the pad and just go like for hours thinking that's going to make it happen. It's like that's really, not going to make it happen. It's just going to sound that way, like choppy. So you want to get them even. So 5 notes. That alternation is really going to help your left hand get equal to your right. And then 3 notes. Right? So 5-5-3 would be 5-5-3, 5-5-3. It just bounces hand in hand. Very simple. But get that left hand involved, right? And I'm just lifting and perpetuating. I'm not using a whole lot of finger. I'm just letting the stick hit off the back fingers. And 4 sets of 5. Down. Relax the grip. So these bursts will help you get them, it's fast singles are just continuous 16th notes, right? That's the goal. So, playing uneven, almost got it, that's not going to do it for you. You want even 16th notes, So practice fast, rebounded, bounced 16th notes in that 5-5-3 pattern. That'll really help you. And you can also apply that to the kit, the same exercise. And it's going to be different because you have to articulate the toms a bit more, right? But if you take that sticking, that alternating 5-5-3, you come back around, and then 4 5s and 2 3s. It works really well, right? Right in time. So. warm-up that I use a lot, and it really burns your forearms. You get your arms moving, gets that rebound happening. So I use that as a direct application from the pad right to the drums. And that'll get that, that burn happening in your forearms. So that's one exercise that I use. Also, the accent tap, and then combination of things using accents and diddles. Everybody knows what the Petrillo is? The right hand and the double left. Do 4 Petrillos and a paradiddle. Get you the other hand, right? Kind of a basic one, but a good one. Now, why do it in 16th notes? More applicable, really, than sextuplets. You can do it in, then switch it hand as well. It's another good one that's really going to burn the forearms. But I do it in 16ths. So then once you're in here, in that mode, you can change to inverted paradiddles, which is the next thing that I tend to teach students. The inverted paradiddle, very underrated. Everybody knows what that is. Puts a diddle in the middle. If you take the accents out of that, a lot of people put the accents in because you got that. Take the accents out. Okay, you got that cool feeling. Instead of when you apply paradiddles to fills, it sounds like you're playing a paradiddle, right? Because you hear it. When you do the inverted, especially for like Brazilian, that style, right? That sticking is used very well. So the inverted paradiddle. So if we did invert it, then put it again. All 16th bass. Hope you all can see this on YouTube and see what's happening with that. I have a lot of these exercises on my book from Hudson Music, Hands, Grooves, and Fills. Shameless plug. If you want to check that out, go to hudsonmusic.com. Well, I'm getting warmed up already. I should do the solo all over again. It might sound even better. We're up there, right? That's not a bad speed. So that's a pretty darn good speed, right, for 16th notes, to move around the kit. One more 16th note bass one would be a paradiddle with a double. Paradiddle double takes you to the other hand. Paradiddle double. It's another sticking that's become pretty popular, I think, in drum corps realms and others as well, in terms of phrasing. And why do that? Because it brings you to the other hand, accent-wise, right? Paradiddle double double. Double double, paradiddle double double, paradiddle double double. Ah, keep hitting my sticks tonight. Okay, here we go. Paradiddle diddles, right? Paradiddle diddles are great for fills. This is the paradiddle with the double. It's all about phrasing and accent. Let's put a metronome on that. So, paradiddle diddles, 2 paradiddle, 4 paradiddle diddles, 2 paradiddles. Dig. Paradiddle diddle and roll, or paradiddle roll. So that's all accent phrasing ideas, right? So you don't always have to try to do them as singles, which is really hard. So let's move to the kit, shall we? So we can do that same thing. practice and groove. This will be the last 16th note one I do. You take a paradiddle diddle. You may have heard this in the solo that I did, because I overuse it. So, paradiddle diddle, paradiddle, and then the last note will be on the bass. So here's your fill of the day, everybody. That and a subway token will get you to Brooklyn. So, paradiddle, tap bass, paradiddle, tap bass. Okay? Very applicable in jazz and many different things. Probably heard that before. So it's paradiddle diddle, last note on the bass. And then you put a little triplet in between. Right? Sounds pretty cool, right? So, thank you very much. And it's not, it's not a hard thing to do once you just kind of, you can get a lot of mileage from it, but it's a very musical feel. So that sort of segues us into some sextuplet ones. I'll show you a couple of sextuplet fills before I go back to playing real music. But, so a big influence other than like Gad and a lot of great drummers from before that, Clyde Stubblefield, Jabbo, Earl Palmer, was listening to Gad play sextuplets. So six-stroke rolls, we all know six-stroke rolls, right? So, but there's so many other things in the sextuplet realm. One of them is a really ignored one, and that's the Radamaqueue. So if you take the Radamaqueue as a sextuplet, right? So there's your sextuplet patida, Radamaqueue, triplet, takes you to the other hand. Learn that stick and you're going to get a lot of mileage out of the sticking. And then the triplet patida. Thank you. Great to see you. So sextuplet patidas will really get you burned in your forearms. That is like gold in terms of application on the drum set and Radamaqueues. So we've all heard Steve Gadd do this, right? Where the bass becomes one. And that now becomes one with the double. So another inversion of that would be lead with the bass. So the patida, then the triplet there. Again, these are all in my book, Hand Screws and Fills. There's a bunch of different orchestrations. So once you know that, you drop that anywhere. It's a great little gem to just drop in. Get a lot of mileage from that one. Together with six-stroke rolls, right? Kind of stock, standard thing to do, but very effective. You know, and a lot of times it's not what you play, but it's also how you phrase it and how you play it. Like the one person's six-stroke roll sounds like another person's flat tire, you know. So, and you know, so being able to phrase those rolls nice and soft. Mix that with the paradiddle diddle one, right? you have it. Sextuplet-based, thank you, sir. Sextuplet-based phrasing, right? So all of that stuff that's you hear a lot of drummers do that. You just need a few, and if you can get these under your hands and under your feet, you're going to get a lot of mileage out of this. The basic split 16th, which is the Phil Collins, right? Phil, but with different what? Phrasing, accents, right? Ghost notes. Sounded like a completely different Phil, right? Now, dig this. Music, man. It's got phrase, it's got movement. You know, it's not a chop or a lick. It becomes a phrase. Think of it as a phrase. I wish people stop using it. Chop this, chop that. Man, I was out chopping wood last week. I mean, let's call it a phrase. Let's call it. Work on, take it, joink, and you drop it in the middle of a song out of context, like, you know. I'm gonna lay this chop on them now. Here it comes. Did I? I mean, it's a little exaggeration, but it seems that way, right? When you watch guys trying to pull it together, like, yeah, man, I got this, I got that, I got this, but it sounds like this, and this. It doesn't sound like this. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't sound like cool. It doesn't sound like music. It's not like cut and paste like you do on a damn computer. It's what it sounds like. It's not smooth. It's not musical because you literally can't put that in a song. I mean, you'd have to, like, mess up the song to put that in. But I mean, the point I'm trying to make is, you know, the facility is cool and use it, and then you gotta sometimes like put it away, and it'll come out naturally if the music is calling for it. Listen, sheds are cool, all of that is great, and it's a beautiful thing to just get it out of your systems. Just dump it all out, you know, just empty your head, and let it all come out in a shed, you know, and hopefully, you know, get something from it. But some of these licks, these fill ideas, you know, are phrasing ideas that should be musical. And if you listen to the great drummers of my inspirations, you know, the Steve Smiths, the Steve Gadds, the Vinnies, you know, it's real musical. It's real, it doesn't sound like a chop, right? So let's start to make it more music and less chop. Anybody want a question? Do you want to ask about any of that before we move on to a track? Okay, so getting back into into groove a little bit. I'm going to play a track from my record, 48th Street, but I want to point out there's going to be a few different things in here. The orchestration and the you know, the lock, which is what I tend to get called for a lot with another bass player, would be the feel and the lock that I have with another bass player. So that means locking my kick with them in terms of rhythmically and finding those spots that line up. And then also groove crafting, okay? Groove crafting is really important if you want to work and play, do sessions, or whether it's here in the studios in LA or whatever, or even in a show, in a Broadway thing, you have to craft a part for songs, okay? That's a whole nother bag, okay? And you can do that if you have context and reference points. Like a lot of times producers will say, Pat, you know, this section I want a fatback beat. Who knows what a fatback beat is? Raise your hand. And it's not a Gary Chafee book thing. There's nothing to do with that. All right? A fatback beat is with a very specific beat, and it's with a real specific song. Might have been the first time it was ever recorded, but it was used on hundreds of records. And it's this. The cold sweat beat, right? But it's called a fatback beat. And producers and people know what that is. Fatback is bacon grease. All right? It's a greasy, it's a nickname given to that beat because it's greasy. Because that snare on the end of 4, no bass on 1 over the bar line. Well, the popcorn, the song came from the fact of James Brown called that sounds like popcorn. So those beats, the quarter note fatback beat, the eighth note fatback beat, those things are real specific. Like, and producers will know them. They'll know what that is. Now, make it greasier. They may not know what to do, but now you will know what to do. You'll play a fatback beat. The minute somebody says, I want greasy, they either want it like an in-between feel. That fatback greasy thing. So you're going to hear that in this track. You'll also hear the lock that I crafted with on this song is Scott Ambush on bass from Spyro Gyra, and the great Nile Rodgers on guitar from Chic. I wrote this in particular with Nile in mind and praying that he would play on my record. So, but it worked out. And when you hear this, you say, yeah, that's Chic, that's Nile Rodgers, that's Pocket, that's the great, rest in peace, Tony Thompson, on drums, Bernard Edwards on bass. So that whole thing is a very 70s New York vibe, okay? So that was the impetus of this song. So now you kind of know where I'm coming from with that. And how I crafted the groove for this. And so this is 48th Street. If you go to iTunes, you will be able to hear the whole record. And it's the Power Station Sessions, and you will find it, Pat Petrillo, Big Rhythm Band. Okay, so this is 48th Street. Here we go. So, when the rhythm section is playing the right or great parts, your part is right. Your part fits with what they're playing. So ultimately, that's your goal, right? Is to craft a groove that fits. So I'm sure in those various sections in that song, you heard how all the parts fit together, right? It's like a puzzle. When it works, it's magic. When it fits together, it's great. How the 16th bass lines up with what the bass player's doing. And in the bridge sections, the bell part, when I follow the bass with the kick with the bass line, boom, 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 boom. So you lock with the bass player. Right? So that's almost like right out of the Gary Chester book, right? So literally, that serves you. That's very, very important stuff to be able to lock and coordinate your bass drum with everything that's going on with the rest of the band. Okay, so crafting parts is vital. It's really a lot of what I do when I write is what I do with a band. If a singer-songwriter asks me to play with them or record with them, I listen to what the vibe of the rhythm of the music is, and just try to craft a part that works. Nobody wants to hear your chop. Really, they don't. But there is a place for that. But I would, tend to think it's less times than it is more that you're going to really use any of that kind of really pyrotechnic stuff. So that's a fun track. Any questions? Anybody want to ask at all? Fire away. I wish we could have a YouTube question. If anybody on YouTube is out there watching live, they want to ask a question and shout it out, that would be awesome. So I guess, changing gears a little bit, musically would be shuffles. A really kind of like underserved groove, I think, in terms of being a great drummer and playing in that, in a shuffle mode. So I do have a track on the record that I'm going to play for you that is a shuffle, and there's a few discrepancies in terms of what shuffles are and where they come from. They are very regional, okay? They are very regional, the shuffles. Despite what you may see in a book or see on a video, they may be saying, oh, there's no such thing. It's because they don't know. It's because they don't know. That's really what it is. So everything really stems from this. So I'm going to just demonstrate this a little bit. The root of American drumming. That's New Orleans, second line, March. It all stems from that. Okay? So that's the swing, that's the music that when the saints go marching in, all of that. Go back and listen and assimilate and try to learn that feel, because then from there was no such thing as a hi-hat. It was way down here. It was called a low boy. So somebody was kicking a bass drum and doing this. It turned out to what's called a two-beat. Okay, and Papa Joe Jones was one of the first guys that had the hi-hat raised, was able to do this. But before that, it was down in here, and he was just literally splashing it because you had a big old marching bass drum with a cymbal on top, right? The thing upside down, and they were just like, oh, when the saints, right? That kind of thing. So the snare caters, C-A-T-E-R-S, the caters, the buzz rolls, and the traps. This was called a contraption, the trap set, because you had contraptions hanging from it, wood blocks, bells, china cymbals. So the traps comes from contraption. So this contraption is an ass kicker in many ways, this whole thing. So, one little, like what they call a Chinese tom-tom hanging off. So you take that, you put it up here, you've got that two-beat. Or also known as the Broadway two-beat. Okay, so that two-beat, that all goes back to New Orleans. So the shuffle, the swing, all of that comes from there. And if you didn't know, if you don't know, now you know. So instead of doing buzz rolls, we're doing this. So instead of, this is a backbeat shuffle, right? You can't get more basic down home than that. Put that turnaround on for, very important. Okay? Someone sing the pitch on the snare. So that's still very New Orleans-y, right? So, now if you take that upbeat feel, you got Earl Palmer with I'm Walking, Fats Domino, New Orleans, right? Some people call that a train beat. Well, okay, but Earl Palmer wasn't from Nashville, so it was done in New Orleans first. You can call it a train beat, you can call it whatever you want, but it's basically Earl Palmer playing I'm Walking. So if you listen to that stuff, you'll play shuffles completely different the rest of your life. If you go back and listen to that stuff and try to emulate it, okay? Now, that being said, the Chicago double shuffle, okay? Chicago has deep dish pizza. This is a deep dish Louis Prima double shuffle, okay? That means both hands. That's a Chicago double shuffle. Well, what label was in Chicago? Somebody? Anybody ever heard of, what's the record label that the great guitarist Chuck Berry was on? Yep. Chess Records. So, running around in my automobile. And there you go. Anybody want to ask what a Chicago shuffle is? That's what it is. It's not from Memphis, no it ain't. It's a Chicago double shuffle. No particular place to go, right? It's more of a straighter kind of thing. It's not straight, but it's not a big backbeat. It's more of a downbeat oriented. You can really hear the notes. A double shuffle is what that is, okay? Now, what's a Texas? Well, I'm not from Texas. I had somebody rail on me saying, what's that got to do with Texas? This is not Texas. Well, there's a couple different ways to play it. Texas shuffle is more like a jazz shuffle. It's got that laid back feel, jagoon, 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 jagoon. That's the Stevie Ray, got feel, ba-doon, 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 right? So it's more of a driving shuffle. Now, if we put that on a hi-hat, but it's a driving. Now, kind of thing. You've gotten into that that Stevie Ray, that whole feel, right? That's also, if you put it here, it's also called the flat tire shuffle. So people call that a flat tire shuffle, right? It's also called a Texas back shuffle, where you got. Again, it's just that jazzy, the great guitar players from Texas, right? You can go all the way, you can go back a long way. Playing that, this voice sort of jazzier, but upbeat, syncopated. And then, we've got Ringo playing Old Brown Shoe from the Beatles. If you follow my Instagram at Pat P. Drummer, you'll see my whole How It Was Played series of Ringo beats. Old Brown Shoe, it was very fast, and it's a flat tire shuffle. Right? And then during the bridge, good old backbeat shuffle. Yeah, that's Ringo. That is Ringo playing that, okay? It's not Paul. It's not his brother Tingo. It's Ringo, right? And he also did a double-handed triplet fill. Yes, that was Ringo. So, you know, there is a history of shuffles that you have to learn. There is a genealogy. Don't just lump them all together in one thing, okay? That being said, on my record, I have a track that is a cover of a Billy Joel tune. And Liberty DeVito, Lib, if you're watching this, as you know, I love you, and thank you. He created an awesome part for a tune called Big Man on Mulberry Street. So I thought it would be great for the band to do a cool arrangement of this, which we did. And on that record. So there's a full circle moment right there. That being said, I'm going to basically play what Liberty played, and he kind of plays that cool, like back shuffle on the hi-hat. It's a great part. So if you check out the original, hear Liberty play it, he kills it. And then halfway through the tune, I flip it around and do a halftime show. Which, you know, you can call it the Purdy, the Porcaro, whatever you want to call it. It's a halftime show. Okay, so this is Big Man on Mulberry Street. got a little gag thrown in there at the end. So, you know, Liberty created an awesome part. So I just tried to, you know, recreate what he did, add my own little flavor to it. But you saw, you know, the halftime, you know, we kind of run through the gamut of a couple of different shuffles. You know, it's a really important, you know, feel to get, and it really separates, you know, how do I say, separates the men from the boys. But it separates really, really, I think, solid drummers and those who have a really, you know, hard time playing shuffles. It's you know, because you don't work on them enough. I think it's part of our vocabulary here that we don't really play enough of as contemporary drummers. You know, we play more hip hop grooves. You know, we'll play a swing, you know, hip hop oriented groove, but we don't play enough, you know, enough shuffles. So, and playing a shuffle in that, you know, in that tempo is definitely a hard thing to do. Are there any questions? Anybody want to ask about the biz or anything like that? I can, yes, of course, Marcelo, the great instructor here from LACM. Thank you, sir.
There you go. Just for whoever's watching on YouTube.
Yes.
So, Pat, first of all, that's great, man.
Thank you so much.
Can you talk a little bit about the music business as well? Because besides being, of course, an amazing drummer, educator, you have projects out there with different brands.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about, you just put the record out, and there's a whole play-along thing on your website that people can buy,
Oh,
right?
thank you. Yes.
Tracks, all that stuff. So, what are your suggestions, you know, as a
Yeah.
drummer nowadays to make it in the German
So,
music industry? Thank you.
Thank you, man. It's such a, listen, right now it's the Wild West, right, out there. So anything goes. I've been doing this pretty much since I got out of college. And my first break was playing Broadway stuff when I got back to Jersey and New York out of college. And one of my teachers got me into doing the subbing and doing a bunch of Broadway, which really my reading had to be on point. So, you know, following conductor and all that, which is a whole different thing. Nowadays, it's playing along to click. So that's really important. So being able to playing to records is a great way of learning how to play with a click. Just playing along to music. So there was that aspect of it, which got me into meeting other musicians, which got me into playing some jazz fusion stuff with some guys that I met. I did a kind of a bus and truck tour of a chorus line, and I met a great guitar player in Philly who I ended up playing a lot with, who got me involved with that circle of musicians, who recommended me for the Patti LaBelle gig. Now, I tell this story of how I got the audition and what the audition was like for the Patti LaBelle gig. And, you know, I'm sure these days it's not as crazy as this, for sure. But auditions are another thing in terms of being who you know, be personable. I mean, there's a lot of great drummers, but there's not a lot of great people, you know. So be a great drummer, but be a better person, you know. And in the circle, your reputation walks in the room before you do. So, you know, how you act, how you talk to other people, how you interact with that sound man who you thought was a real jerk, and you told him that. Excuse me, Mr. Soundman, you're not a real jerk. But sometimes some people will yell at the sound man, and there's nothing wrong, but they feel as if their mix was horrible, and it's all his fault. Call them all kinds of names. Yeah, well, that guy can end up on a gig that, you know, you're on or something like that, or he tells the drummer, yeah, I worked with this drummer last week. This guy, Pat, or somebody, he kept cursing me out or whatever. Yeah, what was it? And before you know it, people know who you are. And that gets on to the next person who then says, yeah, I heard that guy's a real jerk. Okay, so that does happen. So be a better person, an even better person than you are a better drummer. So the audition for Patti LaBelle was, I'll just do the abbreviated version. Everybody in the band recommended their friend or a drummer that they knew. I was playing a lot with Jose Rossi, a percussionist who was in Patti's band forever, and who was in Weather Report with Victor and Omar in that great band. And so he recommended me, the bass player recommended another guy, guitar player recommended a guy, etc., etc. So there was 5 of us. So he said, be at the warehouse at X time, bring your drums, which I thought was weird because I thought it would be at a rehearsal studio with a kit, but it wasn't. Brought my drums, got there early, half an hour early is, on time, right? So everybody had brought their drums. There was only one stage. I got there first. I got on the stage. It was in a big empty warehouse, no soundproofing. So the other drummers set up on the floor on either side of the podium, set up their drums in the room. Okay, this is already looking weird, isn't it, people? This is very strange, right? So we have bass player, we have keyboard, we have guitar, and background singers, and drums all around them. So, so it was weird. The director, Bud Ellison, rest in peace, came in and is real, he was the MD and a piano player as well. A real Ray Charles looking guy, wore sunglasses, but he wasn't blind, okay? Just but a real cool dude, and I was leaving. I was thinking, okay, he's just gonna call us in one at a time, and I think we were all leaving. He's like, no, everybody sit down. Okay, we'll sit down. Sitting down now. We're gonna do Lady Marmalade. I'm like, we're all gonna play this together. It's gonna be a train wreck. I'm telling you, this is gonna be a train wreck. We're gonna do Lady Marmalade. And we're all looking at each other like, what's this guy doing? What's going on? I'm nervous to begin with, And he goes, you play the kick drum part, you play the snare drum part, you play the hi-hat part, you don't do nothing, you give me a fill when I tell you. Here we go. I'm like, holy crap. What's the snare part? What's the hi-hat part? Put it all together, what's the beat? That's the part, right? Train wreck. A train wreck. And so that's wacky, but first of all, it tells you who knows the beat and who doesn't it? If you don't know the beat, you won't be able to do that, right? And hi-hat man was not putting that open hi-hat where it should have been. Snare part, I think, was right. I was too nervous to even know what was going on. So right away, out of the 5, 3 of them were just, thanks for coming. And also, he was seeing he was the musical director, so he was seeing who could follow direction and not give him attitude and say, man, this is stupid. What are you doing? Or with a smile or a smirk on your face. He was saying, who were you? Right? How will you react under pressure? Can you follow direction like that? Because her gig was all about, he'll just walk up to you and no matter what's happening, okay, she's going in the audience now. You watch him and then he'll go like this. That's an 8th note buildup. You know what I mean? It was that kind of gig, So, who was like here, you know what I mean? Who was going to say, you could tell when somebody's vibing, right? Just giving a stink face to this, That's what he was seeing. So that's the business. That's part of it, like interacting with people, being able to follow direction. If it's not your band, you're following direction. If they ask you to play a beat, listen to what the songwriter says. If they want your input and advice in what to play, they will ask you for it. More times than not, they're going to give you a recording they want it sounding similar to what they programmed or similar to the loop that they have. They want you to kind of recreate it with a real feel. You understand? So, and that's all about leaving your ego out the side. Now, if somebody says, can you give me a fat back and put some grease on it, or what do you suggest? Cool. Here's where I could do something like this, and okay? But you don't start that way. You start with what they need, what they want, and go from there. Now, in terms of the industry, it's so different. For me, I've just always changed lanes, you know? Or let's just say stay in the lane when I seen the traffic was passing me by. So I need to be in this lane. You know, whether it's writing, you know, I did one of the first instructional videos ever, snare drum rudiments, back in the day. I mean, I was 10, I don't know, I'm joking. That's a joke. But I went from there, and, you know, I was teaching at Drummers Collective, and Rob Wallace asked me to do a video, we did a video. So then, you know, I just kept writing and teaching, and all my writing became material for another book. Hands, Grooves, and Fills, which I put out, which is a DVD, and all these fills, and all these different beats and coordination, and all of that stuff. Ghost notes, rhythm reading. So everything that I teach is in that book. And then just writing more material, learn to read rhythms, that's also on Hudson Music. So it's a complete reading curriculum, from this is a whole note to this is the most complicated reading rhythm you can find. So I just turned opportunity into business. So I turned my what I do into a commodity and a marketable thing to make money. So, and then in terms, you know, the performance, and then in terms of video and instructional stuff, I would say, you know, like Drumeo had reached out to me, like when they were growing, you know, about coming out and doing some videos, and so at first you know, wasn't sure what it was, you know, what it's all about, because they're still kind of growing. But that was very cool, because it exposed me, I think, to a whole nother, you know, generation of drummers who didn't maybe recognize or know who I was from, you know, back in the day. So, but always just kind of, I think things just kind of pile on top of each other. Same way with gigs, you get recommended by usually bass players. Usually bass players or MDs who happen to be keyboard players. So bass players and keyboard players. Guitar players won't hire drummers, they're just into playing their solos. But no, generally bass players and keyboard and MDs. And so I did a bunch of videos for Drumeo. We did a lot of live lessons from, you know, my studio. By this time, I got the cameras and all this. So you just keep evolving and growing with what's happening. And now I have a whole new setup, you know, at my place in Jersey. I have great cameras, and I put videos into Instagram at Pat P Drummer. You can check that out. But in terms of products, I'm honored to be associated with Ludwig Drums for a while now, and Zildjian cymbals, and switched to Big First sticks, and I use Evans drum heads. But in terms of, I guess it's a good way to talk a little bit about gear. You know, Zildjian was always open to ideas from other drummers about creating new sounds and stuff. So I had been using a couple different ride cymbals, and again, I think this goes back to your reputation in the industry. Like, you know, people like listen to what you say and respect how you play and what you do, and will listen to your input, you know. But it takes a while to get there, you know what I mean? You have to just keep building that. And so I had an idea for a cymbal. It was kind of a mashup of a couple of cymbals. So I designed the organic ride, the K-Custom organic ride. It's been out for 10 years. And, you know, it's been doing very well, and it's a very much a hybrid cymbal that you can really crash with a great bell. You all like it? Sounds pretty cool, right? And it's very articulate, but crashes really well. Great stick definition. A very even, consistent tone, doesn't wash too much, and it's done very well. And so that's one product. And then this is a 19 crash ride model that we're right now prototyping. And so there's that, and then there's the practice pad, the P4 practice pad that is currently distributed by Drumeo. I say currently. So That came to being just from doing, out there in the instructional videos that I did, and the pad was originally released with Ludwig for a few years, and they expressed interest about licensing the pad from me, so we went into an agreement, and that is done very well. I don't know if you've all seen that, the multi-level practice pad. So yeah, I think diversifying in the industry is very important, but establishing yourself as a musician and a drummer, I think, is the first thing. One thing that I'm still learning and doing more about is definitely video production, which I do. I have Black Magic design and all that. I don't use it to its fullest potential. I do, when I do my records, I do demo them, but I don't record and mix all my own stuff. I know there's a lot of drummers who are real serious mic heads and gear heads. I never really like that. I leave that to guys who really know what they're doing. But I know what I hear, and I put my input in. I'll say, turn up 1K here, or turn this down, or let's do this, do that. So knowing, just by listening to records and knowing what, is there, I have pretty good pitch, so, I can hear when things are out of tune, or what have you, rhythmically. So you got to be in charge of your own thing. You're your own business. If you're not playing in bands that you feel that you like, I'd say any experience is good experience, but I will say bad experience is just bad experience. You only learn what not to do in a bad experience, and I think if you don't feel as if it's a good experience for you to play with certain musicians, you have to get out of that circle and find a new circle of people to play with. That's my opinion on that. And do your own thing. Like, I put the big rhythm band together, sort of like people are saying, just do it, man, just do it. I just called people. I got some charts, had some guys do some Beatles arrangements for me, and we started playing in the city. And then from there, I was like, I would love, to do a record at Abbey Road. I did a Kickstarter and raised enough funds. I'm blessed to have enough fans out there. We raised enough bread to do this, and we went to Abbey Road Studio 2, which is like the mecca for me, and it was like being in a womb, it was incredible. So I cut my first record, the Abbey Road Sessions, with my band there, and we just did the last one at the Power Station, and I think we're gonna do the new one at Sunset this summer, I hope. So yeah, the business is the business, and I don't like putting stuff out there for free. I'm not one to do that as much. I don't mind doing like the Instagram thing, like my How It Was Played series on Instagram, because to me, that's like mostly Ringo stuff, but there's some other drummers I'm doing as well. But that's my homage to Ringo. That's my give back to Ringo, like dissecting his parts. And they're all, trust me when I tell you that they're perfect, down to the sticking, okay? And the tea-towels, which I got from Abbey Road. So check out, if you go on Instagram, watch, my How It Was Played videos. And so, yeah, I think it's, these days though, with viral and all that, I feel as if, and I said this on an interview once, drummers are using the instrument for other people to dig them, as opposed to using the instrument to play music and be in a band. You know what I mean? This becomes the vehicle to put yourself out there to watch what I do, and I'm wearing a clown hat and I'm juggling my stick and I'm doing this. I think, that's all well and good. It's going to give you 1 billion likes or whatever, but how do you monetize that? Are you making a living from that? Or are you just a clown juggling behind a drum set? Are you a content creator, or are you a musician? There's a whole big debate about that, and there's a lot of drummers have been back and forth on the internet about, you're a content creator. No, I'm not. I'm an instructor. Well, no, you're a content creator, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're creating pretty cool stuff, and that's awesome. But are you an educator? Are you a guy that people are going to listen to learn a biome? Are you a guy that people are going to listen to learn Afro-Cuban or funk or fusion? Or are you a content creator? So I think this instrument, more so than any other instrument, is being used to, for people to get likes and you think that's going to get you an endorsement, and it might in some regard, but that still means you're going to pay for your gear. You just won't pay as much for it. But, so it's a weird industry out there these days, it is, but I would say just play music, and don't not think about teaching and giving back, because that's just another form of income. I have many different income streams. I have educational, I have performance, I have records, I have products. So, Russ Miller is another great drummer who's another great definition of an entrepreneur in this industry, And again, I just try to do what I have learned and what I can play and what I do and I've learned from other people. I also give credit to where I learned things, which is a big thing for me. I watch things like, don't say you created that because you did. So I don't like when people do that. I always like to say, man, I heard this Steve Gaffney, and here's my interpretation. Or I heard this Greg Bissonette, and here's my interpretation. Do that, man. Don't say it. Check this out, because everybody knows, no, that's not you. Okay, that's from this. So just come out and say it, because people will respect you more. Okay, those of you out there in YouTube land, people will respect you if they say, this dude's got it right. He didn't invent the wheel, and he's saying where he got it from, but he's putting his own little thing on it. That's cool. That's cool. In the drumming world, as big as it is, it's really not. So we know where you got the lick from. Trust me. And trust me, we know. So don't front. Don't say, man, here's this thing. Yeah, okay, Dave Weckl. Okay, 1988. I got it. Okay. I know where you got it from. Okay. So please give credit where credit is due. Say, I learned from Dave Weckl this. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make you look any smaller. It makes you look like knowledgeable. And it doesn't make you look stupid in front of people who know where you got it from. You know what I'm saying? So please credit people as other drummers, because we're all standing on each other's shoulders. Steve Smith does a great job at that, man. All the great drummers have a great. Only person who probably didn't credit anybody was Buddy Rich. Because, he was here when dinosaurs were drumming. So he was like, and Earl Palmer and those guys. Anyway, so that's my long-winded answer, hopefully about the business. Anything else anybody want to ask? I do have another tune to play. We good? Good on time? We might end a little early. Is that okay? We're good? Any other questions at all? At all? About anything? All right, I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you, Marcelo, for having me. And thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much. So, there's a great composer. I think I might need to, this thing might be slipping here because the things are moving around. If we can tighten that for me, I greatly appreciate it, bro. Maybe raise it up. There's a great composer named Gordon Goodwin, and some of you may have done some of his tunes. And I have a track that's one of his books. Yeah, you can raise it up. I think it's slipped, yes. And it's a great tune. He has many play-alongs. I highly recommend Gordon Goodwin series of material. Excellent writer. And so, this is a track called The Jazz Police. Some of you out there have seen it, maybe even played it in your jazz bands in college, whatever, but I'm going to do my interpretation, my version of it. It's not going to make me sound like the record, but I think Bernie Dressel played on this stuff, and Bernie's a burning drummer, and but I'm going to do the Petrillo East Coast version. So here we go. This is Jazz Police, Gordon Goodwin. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for coming. Yay, I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. 1, 2. Yay. Thanks for having me. It's very cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.